So today we are going to solve some inequalities, but this time they'll be multi-step inequalities. So if we look at the first problem here, we've got to simplify the right-hand side of this inequality. So far we've got this 4 is greater than x, and then we're going to minus the product of 3 times a sum of x and 2. So we need to eliminate this set of parentheses first. So we're going to take this negative 3 here, and we are going to distribute it over this addition. And so once we've done that, we'll go ahead and bring down what we haven't dealt with yet, which is the 4. And the 4 is greater than x, and then when we multiply the negative 3 over that sum, we end up with a negative 3x minus 6. And that's where most people make the error, is right there. And when we multiply a negative times a positive, it makes a negative. So from this point, we've almost got a two-step inequality. We just have to collect some like terms. So we've got a positive x here. Again, I'm always looking at the sign in front. And then we have a negative 3x here. So minus 3x, same as plus negative. So we go ahead and combine those two. Now when we combine them, they're opposite in sign. So we end up having to subtract those two numbers. That leaves us with a negative 2x. We bring down that minus sign and the 6 as well. So now we've got ourselves a two-step inequality. So the way we solve it is just do opposite operations from this point. This is a minus 6, so we're going to add 6 to both sides. And so when I add 6 to the other side, I end up having to add those two numbers because they are the same sign, which gives me 10. Bring down that inequality sign, and I have to bring down that negative 2x. Again, another error people make is they forget to bring down the negative. So from this point, we go ahead and divide by a negative 2. Now we have to remember that important rule that we talked about yesterday. When we divide by a negative or multiply by a negative, the bigger numbers get smaller, the smaller numbers get bigger. And so that's why we end up having to switch that inequality sign. So we end up with a negative 5 is now less than x. Now when I read inequalities, I like to start from the variable. It's easier for me to understand. So the values of x are greater than negative 5. Greater means bigger. And so if I was to write the x on this side, the left side of the inequality, and the negative 5 on the right side, I would need to switch the sign again because I need them to match. See how x is greater than negative 5 here? If I put the x on this side, I still need it to be open, the inequality to be open towards the x. So x is greater than negative 5. So now I'll go ahead and graph this, putting negative 5 in the center. And then I'll place the bigger number, which is closer to 0, negative 4, to the right, and negative 6 to the left. And so now I need the appropriate type of circle. And so the appropriate type of circle is the one in which shows that it's not equal to negative 5, but it's every number up to negative 5. So that's why we consider negative 5 an end point. And so it's not one of the solutions, but it defines the end of the solutions. And so x needs to be bigger than negative 5, so we're going towards the bigger numbers. Now, bigger is always to the right, smaller is to the left. Well, let's take a look at another example similar to that. So number 2. Let's say we had, how about this one, a negative 3 being multiplied by a difference. So difference means subtraction. So I'm going to take the difference of 3 and x. So when you read off and you say the word difference, the first number you say comes first, the second number comes second. So the difference of 3 and x is 3 minus x. And then we have a less than symbol, and then a 4 to the second power. So we've got a few different things here. First of all, we've got some parentheses and exponents we can clear first. So the first thing I'm going to do is take this -3 and I'm going to distribute it over that difference, that subtraction. And then I'm also going to take care of this exponent as well. And so we'll go ahead and use that distributive property. So right here we have a -9 and then a positive 3x. So -3 times 3 makes -9. -3 times -x makes a positive 3x. Now we bring down the same inequality sign. We square 4, we get 16. So from that point, we need to get rid of this -9 because it's now a two-step equation. So the way we do that is opposite operations. So this is a -9, so I'm going to add 9 to both sides. And then from there, I can go ahead and bring down that 3x. And I'll bring down this inequality sign. And this ends up making 25. So now I have just one final step. I need to get rid of that 3. So the way we do that is we divide. Divide by 3 on both sides. And so when I've done that, I now have just x, and x is less than. So I do not switch the sign because the x term is positive. So when the x term is positive, I'm dividing by a positive. So the sign stays the same. So we can leave it as 25/3 because that is reduced. Now, since we're having to graph it, we need a better understanding about where that number is on the number line. So this is where we use mixed numbers or decimals. So we think about how many times 3 goes into 25. That's 8 times. And how much is left over? Well, 8 times 3 makes 24. Take 24 from 25 and you're left with 1. And you always use the same denominator. So 8 1/3. So that tells us where to plot the number. So we got 8 1/3 here. Now we need the smaller numbers to the left. So the next smaller number, well, I can go ahead and put 7 1/3 here. Or I could just put 7 if I wanted to. Or then over here I've got 9 1/3. It's a bigger number. And I have at this time another open circle showing that 8 1/3, all the numbers go up to 8 1/3, but this time x is less than because it points to the x. So less means left. That's a good way to remember that. Less equals left. It doesn't work with the right. Greater means right, more than means right, but less and left kind of go together. So less means left. So the next example, we'll deal with maybe a fraction in front of the parentheses in part 2.